Good morning. Magandang umaga po. We are going to talk today about, first of all, pronouncement or an advisory that's becoming effective on December 7th. I apologize that I was not able to do this earlier because I had some systems issues on my computer. And also we'll talk about some misunderstanding about citizenship, Philippine citizenship, passport, etc., etc. We will talk about that in a nutshell so everybody understands, because I'm getting a lot of questions regarding this. Okay, so stay with me. Let me explain what usually happens to you when you move from the Philippines to the US. Usually you go to the US to become a permanent resident, you get a green card. After you stay in the US for at least 5 years, you can apply for citizenship in the United States. Up until that point, you only have a Philippine passport because you're a citizen of the Philippines. Now, when you apply for US citizenship, at the moment you become a US citizen, you lose your Philippine citizenship. I hope, well, a lot of you I know knows that, but some people seem to be surprised that they lost their citizenship. Some people say, oh gee, I'm now a US citizen, but I still have this passport which has a validity date that is sometime in the future. So they ask me, could I still use this Philippine passport to go into the Philippines? And I say to you, no. To use a Philippine passport is illegal, because when you became a US citizen, you have forgone your citizenship in the Philippines. So you have to use your US passport, the blue book. Now, is that clear? Because I see a lot of people say, oh gee, my passport is still valid and can I use that? After you become citizen, that's no longer valid, whether they put a marking on your passport or not. Okay, whether they did that to your passport or not, it's no longer valid, so you have to get rid of it. Well, no, don't get rid of it, save it, okay? Because that's a proof, just like a birth certificate, that once upon a time you were a Filipino citizen, okay? And that is the reason why, if you want to regain or recapture the benefits of being a Filipino citizen, for example, you can go in and out with no limit. If you only use your US passport, you are limited in time as an American citizen, only 30 days. But as a benefit to people who are former citizens, there is so-called Balikbayan program. Okay, that is a privilege being given to you by the Philippines. You do not have the right, it's a privilege, so it could be taken away anytime. Okay, but when you have a Philippine passport, like I do have now, okay, you're a dual citizen, you have the benefit like any other Filipino has. For example, you can own property or land with no limit as to the size. When you are an American citizen and you lost your Philippine citizenship, you are limited in terms of the number of properties you can buy in terms of size, okay? I mean in terms of size. Now, this is the reason why Philippines was nice enough to say, okay, you are a former Filipino, I'll give you the chance to recapture your citizenship, and that's why you apply for dual citizenship. So once again, you are a Filipino citizen and you have a blue passport and this passport. Dual. Okay. When I got my citizenship, I immediately got this. Nobody even told me you need to get it. Okay. Now, the Philippines, once again, is giving you the privilege or the benefit of not having to get a Philippine passport. So you can just apply, you can just use the letter that they gave you when you became a dual citizen. They gave you a 3-page letter. One letter says identification certificate, a dual citizenship identification certificate. You can use that, they allow you to use that to be able to get to the Philippines as a dual citizen. However, if you want to go in any other country, they do not recognize that. What they're looking for is the standard document travel. the standard travel document. This is what you need to present. That is the reason why it's important to have this. Now, do I need this? Not necessarily. In most cases, you don't need it. Why? Because a US passport carries more weight. You can go to more countries without needing a visa compared to this, okay? But having this is also nice because it's a proof that you are a dual citizen. When I open my bank account, I show them the Philippine passport. Okay, will they recognize or will they recognize or see that you are a dual citizen by having that dual citizen certificate identification? Probably not. Okay, not too many people know that unless you went through the process. Okay, but the Philippine passport is definitely something you want to have, but not necessarily. Now, let's talk about this new pronouncement, and I'm going to make a distinction between Filipino, Filipino citizen, and former Filipino. Some people say, gee, I'm Filipino, gee, I'm Filipino. All of us who came from the Philippines are Filipinos, but we are not necessarily Filipino citizen. If you become a US citizen, you just lost your Philippine citizenship, but you are still a Filipino, okay? But there's a difference. There's a difference. As a former Filipino, you are looked upon by the Philippines as a foreigner. They just give you the privilege, it's a privilege, not a right, to go in under the so-called Balikbayan program. You are also restricted or limited to the number of or the size of the property that you can acquire in the Philippines as a former Filipino. That's also a privilege because as a foreigner, let's say you're not Filipino, as a foreigner, you're not allowed to own anything. Now, as a former Filipino, they allow you to have a little bit, but not too much. As a Filipino, you can buy anything and everything you want, any size you want. Okay? So that is the difference. Now, I'm going to use the term Filipino citizen instead of just Filipino. Okay? But you know now what I mean by Filipino citizen, not Filipino, Filipino citizen. So here is what the new December 7 pronouncement says. Pursuant to Foreign Services Circular dated November 27, the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Disease Resolution number 85 dated November 26, and with reference to the Republic Act, blah, 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 too many lingo here. They're saying that the following individuals shall be exempted from the temporary suspension of visa privilege effective December 7. Now, if you recall, there was a temporary suspension in that only Filipino citizens and former Filipinos were allowed to come in without a visa. If you are a foreigner, you will need a visa, and unfortunately, they're not issuing a visa. Okay? And also, Filipino citizens and former Filipinos were allowed to come in to include their foreign spouse and foreign child. But the foreign child has to be a minor. Okay, foreign child has to be a minor. Also, both foreign child and foreign spouse will need to have a visa. Now, this is the change. They're saying now you do not need a visa. You can enter the Philippines if you are Filipino citizen, a former Filipino citizen, along with their spouses and children, regardless of age. So, even if you are bringing with you an adult child, well, he's no longer a child, but an adult, well, you know what I mean. an adult, you can bring them in, unlike before. And that is without any visa. However, they have to be traveling with you. Okay? So, some people say, oh gee, my wife and children are in the Philippines and I'm here in the US, so I'm going back to the Philippines. I don't have them. Too bad, you cannot come back. Okay? They have to be traveling with you. Now, Filipino citizens, obviously, foreign spouses and children, regardless of age, who are traveling with them. Okay? So, the Filipino citizen spouse need to be traveling with them. Now, there are some additional requirements. Let's take a look at this. The entry of said foreign national shall be subject to the following conditions. They must be nationals permitted, allowed to enter the Philippines visa-free under Executive Order number 408. They also must be pre-booked. They must also have a pre-booked quarantine facility. They must have a pre-booked COVID-19 testing at a laboratory operating at the arrival of the airport. I don't know about this last provision where they say they shall be, they are subject to maximum capacity of inbound passengers at the port of entry and during the date of entry. That is controlled by the airline. So I don't really think you have to worry about that. But the important thing is that you will still be subject to quarantine, and that's going to be 2 days while you're waiting for the result of the test. Okay, and after 2 days, if you are positive, you go straight to the hospital. But if you are negative, then you're home free. But when you're home, you are still required to do, I guess I'll call it voluntary, 12-day quarantine in your house. That is the new pronouncement that is becoming effective on December 7th. I hope this clarifies everything. Don't think about using your old passport. Any passport issued before you became a naturalized U.S. citizen is no longer valid. You have to go for dual citizenship, and if I were you, after you get your dual citizenship, I will try to get a passport, even though if you only travel occasionally to the Philippines, it's okay to use the ID because it's inconvenient. It's not easy for some people. For example, people in Florida will have to fly to Washington to get their Philippine passport. And I think right now they do it by mail. Oh no, you cannot do it by mail because they have to take your picture and fingerprinting. So you really have to travel there. And if that is not convenient, what I would suggest is the next time you visit the Philippines, apply there. But now I'm also hearing that no, Philippines is just like here. You cannot even get an appointment, or the appointment is like a month to half a year from today. So I don't know what is what, and I'm sure it's changing every single day, but do check, and if there's an opportunity for you to get one, get it in the Philippines. Now again, if you're only traveling maybe once every 2, 4, 5 years or 10 years, you can just use the ID. But that too can change, okay? Remember, don't get mad if later you say, oh gee, I used to travel only using this, and now I have to get a passport. That could change, because that is just a privilege being given to you by the Philippine government, which could be taken away anytime. All right? So I hope this clarifies everything about this process. I do not have any information yet on, as far as I know, the SRRB visa. This is for retired foreigners or foreign nationals. Is not being issued unless you already have one in existence. If you want a new one, you cannot get one, okay? And definitely nothing for tourists, okay? Nothing for tourists unless you are a Philippine national or a Philippine citizen, okay? So thank you very much for watching, and please do share this with other people who might also be of benefit having this information. And please do subscribe to my channel unless you have already done so. Make it a great day.